Hello, Copic in the Craft Room fans. Michelle Houghton here. I have a video featuring Flora and Fauna stamps today. So these little bugs and VW buses are adorable, and they come with all these accessories to accessorize them. So I've gone ahead and stamped the actual bug and the beetle and the van in colored ink. And then I added some details. The little bug obviously has a unicorn horn and then a crown on the other. So the coloring, because it's so simple, I'm going to be able to keep it pretty much live or about regular speed. I started with an R81 and flicked those from the base of the ears up. And then I'm also adding that R81 on the flowers, on the little kind of wreath around her little head. And then I used the colorless blender from the tips of the ears back to soften that. I'm also using a little touches of V04 on the center of the flowers to kind of just give a little bit more dimension, and softening that up with the R81. I did not try to mask off the bug, and so there is that yellow ink underneath, but because it's Copic friendly, it's not going to smear around. Little YG03 for the leaves, and I'm just filling those in. All of this is so small, so just small touches of color. Y00 for the horn, and then also the crown on the VW bus. Jumping to Y21 and shading that crown like a cylinder. So it comes down from kind of along both edges, leaving a highlight, and then coming along one edge of the horn and kind of under those little lines. Y28 is going to finish both, or complete the shading on both the crown and the horn. You can see where I've left the highlights, kind of have that bright color, and then I'm softening or blending with that Y21 and Y00. Trying to leave those really bright highlights on both of those just to have that effect of kind of that metallic gold. And then I'm going to use a tiny bit of BG000 in on the windshields of both vehicles. So I'm flicking from the sides inward and leaving kind of those center kind of portions white. And then I'll come in with that colorless blender and push out on that BG000 to soften those edges so it really just fades off into white. Then I'm going to use a product called a liquid Frisket, and this one actually comes with kind of a needle that, if it's not clogged, works really efficiently for fine line areas, but mine is completely clogged up. I haven't used it in forever. So I'm using a very old paintbrush, knowing that this is going to probably ruin this brush. You can never get it fully out because it's kind of rubbery, and I'm covering the entire image. So I'm covering the VW bus plus his crown, and then the little bug and her unicorn horn. And that is all covered with that Frisket. And I do need to let it dry. I'm not very patient, and you'll see where it's still pretty tacky in the center where there's some thick parts. Then I'm using some Post-it notes, and I am kind of masking off or framing out some areas on the card. And then just a piece of paper to cover the top, because I know when I use my airbrush, I'm going to get that overspray. So then I am using a C5, and I think I started with C3 and then bring the C5 in because I switch here and get a little darker. So I think I started with C3, but then I bring a C5 in. And the beauty of this is I really just want to make it look like they're sitting on a road. And that's easy to do with the Post-it notes, but covering those little individual buses, and I could have stamped them and cut them out, but covering it with just a painted Frisket goes really fast. So I moved the Post-its, and now I'm doing the hill around the road. So that was YG63, and then all of this peels up. Notice the VW bus and the beetle are still covered, but now I can flip those little post-its around, cover the ground, kind of protect that, and now I can airbrush the sky. So I bring in a brighter blue. I tend to use darker blues when I airbrush, just because when you start airbrushing, it definitely ends up lighter than when I'm coloring solid. So that's a B02. And if you want to get it lighter, you can obviously change markers, but just back off, kind of pull away a little bit. Nice even strokes. You can see a little bit on mine at the top. So it goes right over the Frisket, but now I can come in, and if you ever played around or used when you were young, rubber cement has that same kind of effect. It's a little stickier than that, but you can kind of roll up the Frisket and it comes off and you have that image underneath. Now what I discovered as well is, because I didn't let this sit very long, is that because that ink was still pretty wet as I was rolling it up, I had to be real cautious about where I set my hand. So in a second here, you're going to see me, and I'm kind of using the piece of the Frisket that I rolled up to kind of pull off those other little pieces. But I realize I've ended up with some of it on my fingers. And so in a second, I'm going to use a piece of paper just to cover up part of the picture, so protecting that as I continue to rub around on the page. And kind of pull that up again. I can use the bigger piece I pull up to kind of pounce and get those little pieces off. But this is it, and then I can trim this down and put this on a card front. And actually, I realized that end part was sped up quite a bit. This actually went extremely quickly because the coloring is so small. Hope you enjoyed that quick, easy tutorial today. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out what I'm up to. If you have a chance, stop over at my blog, scrapweaver.com, to find out about live teachings that I'm doing all over the country and the new stuff coming up. Hope you have a happy, colorful day.